Thank you, Elise. Yes, we are delighted to be here. And I just want to say a big thank you to you and Dave for bringing together this whole global experiment together. So thank you very much. It's great fun to be part of this, experiment. So welcome everybody. It's so great to see you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been on a few sessions this morning, so I have a little bit of a context of what's been going on. I would love for people to drop in the chat where they're from and where you're joining us from today. I am joining you from Trinidad and Tobago, and luckily it is not raining here today. We are in the middle of a rainy season, and so we've been having lots of rain, but luckily it's dry today, so no thunder in the background. So welcome to our session today. We are going to be exploring our experiments around innovation, engagement, and the bigger brain. And what does this mean? So when John and I started thinking about this, I bet, John, can you go on to the next slide for me? When we started thinking about this, we started exploring, well, what is the challenge that we are facing in the world today? Kind of where are we with this? And the challenge that we came up with is just the grand pace and scale of change that's ahead of us, right? The changing pace and scale of organizational and societal challenges that we face means that we are smack in this, what we call ingenuity gap. And we're going to explore what is the ingenuity gap today. But as a result of kind of being deep into this ingenuity gap, what was the new rule of work that we saw emerging from this? And what we shared together is that in order for us to close this ingenuity gap, we needed to tap into the bigger brain, a bigger brain than what we have access to now, to be able to explore some of these really wicked challenges that are ahead of us. And what was the bigger brain? Well, the bigger brain was going to be enabled by both us as humans and technology at scale. And so this is the experiment that we are tackling and taking on today. And it is great. I see Canada, I see Bay Area, Chicago, lots of people dialing in from all over. It's lovely to have you here. John, do you have any neighbors here? No, I don't see any of your neighbors here just yet.
No, just for context, yes, this is Wisconsin. But I'm originally from Canada, so I've been many places around the world, so delighted to see you all today.
Delighted to see you all. So we would like to kick off our session today just by giving you the chance to get focused and get present and to think about this question. So before we get into this and we start exploring a few things, that you have a chance to think for yourself, what does this question mean to you? So we're going to go into a very short breakout group. And the question that you're going to have to share together is, what do you consider to be the connection between innovation and engagement? That's the question that we offer you. We're going to put you into breakout groups of around 3 people. So we'll have trios, and you're going to have 10 minutes in your breakout group, and we'll bring you back at the end of the 10 minutes. So you can take a couple of minutes to just say hi, and then dive in and share some thoughts around this question. What do you consider to be the connection between innovation and engagement? And I think Stacey's going to get us all into breakout groups, and we will just take a quick 10 minutes to connect with this topic. Hi, and welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that discussion. I would love for you to share in chat, what are some of the connections that emerged from your discussion? So as you're joining us, if everyone is back, too short, it's always too short. What are some of the connections that emerged from your discussion? So you were chatting about the connection between innovation and engagement, and I would love to know what are some connections that emerged for you. So tell us in chat what came up. That innovation always requires engagement. So yeah, so innovation requires some sort of engagement. So it's like engagement is somewhat of a prerequisite maybe for innovation. That you can have engagement without innovation, but you can't have, I think, innovation without engagement. Got it. Attention does not always mean engagement. Absolutely. Yes, so they go hand in hand. I think we see that as a theme coming up here. That engagement can be with other humans, but also with things, ideas, self, and nature. Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Technology and how it's used. Engagement varies with context. Lovely. People are the connection between innovation and engagement. They need to be willing to do either or both. Great. They create one another, purpose, change, and stories. Lovely. So we see a theme here that there's a direct connection definitely between innovation and engagement. And we are going to be looking at this as we continue in the session. So John, I'm going to hand over to you now. Take us through the next bits. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this discussion, and this discussion is going to be conceptual. It's going to be experiential, and it's going to hopefully elicit some insights and thoughts about how innovation and engagement in the bigger brain can work together and can help us access better ideas, better solutions, better ways of framing our world, framing our challenges that we face. In order to kind of set the stage here with pinning some concepts to the wall, we're taking, again, all the caveats here around, is it the best definition? Perhaps not, but it's something for us to work with as we move through this discussion. Innovation, we're taking to be that practical realization of an idea, not merely the idea itself, but the practical realization of an idea for a new product, a process, a service, or a way of behaving or interacting. And in terms of engagement, we're thinking of this or conceiving of it as the level of commitment and investment from people in solving organizational problems and realizing opportunities. And we can't help but try and distill this even more into a phrase or a sentence that tries to capture innovation and engagement. And this is something that Tricia and I were drawn to, which is what we're focused on here is solving problems that matter with the people for whom solutions matter the most. And hopefully you can see a little bit of that innovation and engagement there. So that's just setting some of the background context around what we're talking about when we say innovation and engagement. Oops. What I would like you to do, and we'll stay here in the together session, the plenary session, is to pop into the chat what you see as some of the biggest innovation challenges that are coming your way. Just want to get a feel for how you see the world, whether it's your organization, whether it's your community, whether it's something broader than that, society, the environment. What are the biggest challenges you see coming your way? Lack of trust in dealing with complexity, and anchoring, I believe, to the status quo, if I'm reading that correctly. Relevance of being in the office. Vetting of ideas and coming to consensus. There's a life cycle with chats like this where the longer sentences start to emerge if you give it a little bit of time. We'll hit the paragraphs soon, I'm sure. The lifestyles and work styles that separate people, the challenge in the public sector of doing more with less. Excellent. I'll just give it a few more seconds to bring a few things in here. Bureaucracy and including people. I love that. Quiet quitting. Yes. Excellent. I'm going to use that to kind of step into not innovating in complacency. Excellent. I want to step into this idea that Tricia had mentioned earlier about the ingenuity gap. And to step into that, I want to frame it around some of our big problems, our wicked problems, our intractable problems that we face. Some of these came up in the chat. Even something as broad as the lack of trust, or something as organizational as mapping or managing and navigating on-premises versus off-premises work lives. Wicked problems are what we're struggling with. And I've put a few here on the right-hand side, whether it's climate change, whether it's the challenge of migration, whether it's providing access to healthcare, socioeconomic inequality. These are the things that we wrestle with. And innovation is confronted that. Our challenge of engaging people is confronted with dealing with those wicked problems. And because Tricia and I run a podcast, we co-host a podcast called Every Little Model, we have our favorite models, and this is one of mine. It's the Ingenuity Gap by Thomas Homer Dixon, a Canadian academic. And I come back to this again and again, and essentially he is saying that there's a gap between the problems that we need solving, the ingenuity that needs to be applied, and the ingenuity and the capability to solve those problems that exists. And that is started to grow and extend over time. You know, and we see that climate change in one era becomes a more difficult and systemic problem when you move through the decades to today. The challenges of things like single-use plastic. You know, we struggle to apply or tap into the ingenuity that we've got to solve these bigger problems that we've got going on. How do we do that? Well, our belief is you're going to have to access a bigger brain to do that. And that's what we're going to be trying to explore here today. Now, what do we mean by a bigger brain? One of the other models that we thought we would introduce to the discussion is the social ecological model, essentially moving from what I know to what we know, moving up the ladder from the knowledge that I can acquire through books that I've read, through practical experiments that I conduct on my own as I grow and learn, through to the knowledge that I can gain from working with other people who are in my near proximity relationships, through to the community, through to society. That bigger brain is found within those concentric circles. There's a soda light sort of glow underneath that, which is, what does the technology know? And boy, you know, every time I click on this, I have a note saying, don't make it sound so sinister, John. I don't think I quite struck that chord. But there's what technology knows, and there's a combination of things. There's what technology knows because we programmed it to do things. We've invested human knowledge. We've moved from, as Roger Martin likes to say, we've moved from mystery and heuristic through to algorithm and into code, and we've coded that knowledge somewhere in the technology so we can move on to other things, free up some space in our own brains or communal brains. But there's what the technology knows that perhaps we never put there. It's the senses that are out there, the digital trails, the footprints we leave, the journeys that we go on that are captured by technology, that can be accessed out there and can help us tap into this bigger brain. And as a point I want to make is that we will be talking about technology as it relates to engaging people in sessions, much like this, to kind of build out how we can close that ingenuity gap. I wanted to give just a quick vignette about things that maybe, you know, the technology can help us understand. There's this wonderful story from a few years ago about a wicked problem around the migrant crisis, displaced people coming from Eastern Africa, and the challenge of, well, how can we prepare agencies for an influx of people moving away from lands that might be war-torn, might be economically disadvantaged, might be suffering from famine, et cetera, or an ecological disaster. How can we better understand when that's going to happen? Because we can't wait for the conflict. And the UN High Commission for Refugees had conducted some research in East Africa and discovered that one of the leading indicators was the liquidation of assets, namely goats. And if they were able to access the data around the goat market, they might have an indication that there's about to be a mass exodus of people, of refugees. And that's something, again, that we can't really intuit on our own, even with much of our human bigger brain, that we need to be tapping into technology. So I wanted to share that as an example of that soda-like glow underneath there. I'll just pause if there are any comments or questions before I move on through this. We have one more visual model to come. Okay, I will press on. So in order to step into, same indicator from pre-World War II. Yes, interesting. Exactly, for refugees. So I'm going to flip this model on its side. And so if we look at the terrain, so we can get into talking about the human brain and the digital brain. We've got humans and technology and this bigger brain that we believe that can be accessed in the middle. The human brain is, you know, if we think about some of the things that are available to us, again, a caveat here, this isn't meant to be comprehensive, but there's some technologies and techniques, these ways of working that are very human-centered. And they're on the left, and we'll see some familiar names. Again, not meant to be comprehensive, but tools and frameworks as you find in liberating structures to help groups conceive of problems, conceive of opportunities, to share and build common framing and consensus and explore them. In a similar way, Luma Institute, I could put IDEO there, provides design thinking tools and techniques to help humans access a wider set of knowledge and perspectives. Game storming, again, and Lucid, two groups that we will be intimately familiar with here. And then rounding it off on the side, we've got other organizations. I just selected one like The Ready, who focused on building agile capabilities and practices. How do we iterate over a sprint? Vega Factor around how do we build and tap into motivation and motives, purpose, play, and potential. And then lastly, again, rounding out the human side, there's Genient, which focuses on trying to build the physical spaces that support and enable innovation. So that's on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, and Tricia, if you see anything in the comments there, I'll do a pause in a second and we can maybe tease out some of the ones we're touching on. On the right-hand side, we've got the technology-centered aspects of intelligence. Amazon, Azure from Microsoft, OpenAI, and DeepMind rather, Consensus, which is focused on applying artificial intelligence to the world of research. Type in, tell me everything. What's the research say about conducting innovation in the context of food supply? These are all very interesting technologies, but we think that it comes together in the middle where we can start to bring that to bear and map it to some of the human side of things. Above and below this, obviously, and I'll round out this framework here, are some of the more common things that we experience that help us do these things. Shared documents through Notion or Google or Miro boards with having collaborative virtual spaces, as well as team platforms, just Slack, Zoom, or Microsoft Teams, are all the things that we've got access to help access this bigger brain. So I'll pause there. Tricia, was there what of note was starting to come through in a chat window I could not have my eyes on?
So just inviting everyone to share in the chat window if there are other sort of human techniques or technologies that you see being used. Obviously, we've just shared a few of them here, and then maybe some other platforms or practices, emerging practices and platforms that you see on the technology side. So feel free to share some of those in the chat. We have some being shared on the human side, like convergent facilitation, emergent strategy, biomimicry, theory U, play, mural, as well as Miro. We're in the middle. The integral model, applied improv, or some other ideas being shared. So feel free to keep sharing those in the chat as well to see what else we're seeing.
Fantastic. What we're going to do today, deep democracy comes up quite often in our conversations, Tricia. I just saw that. Yes. So what we're going to do in the next part of our session together is to explore two technologies. One is Question Jam, which you may or may not have heard of, and the other is ChatGPT, again, which you may or may not have heard of, but I suspect many of you have. And we're going to conduct some brief exercises to engage both of those.
Great. So if you've heard of Question Jam, give me a thumbs up. Use the reactions and give me a thumbs up, either a virtual one or a real one. Okay, I have some people sort of giving a few thumbs ups there, real thumbs ups that I can see. So thank you for that. So we're going to play a little bit with Question Jam. So just so you know, I was introduced to this platform as part of the community, the Never Been Done Before community, hosted by Miriam Hadneys, and we had a session where we were introduced to Question Jam. It's a really interesting, almost crowdsourcing platform that allows us to tap into that community and societal, like group level, starting to push up into that group level in the model that John was showing us, as we kind of tap in by asking what questions people have around a topic. And then we're starting to toss those questions around to other people that are there and present in the room so that they can share some of their thoughts on that. So it's very much on the human side of the the model that we were showing you, so the human side, and it is starting to tap into just touching on what do people think about a certain topic. So we're going to give this a try. It runs for about 7 minutes once I start it. So as you can see on the screen, you can, and I will just share the link in the, Zoom chat for you as well. So in the Zoom chat, you can click on that link, or so that it comes up on your computer, or you can scan the barcode with your phone and it will come up. You can log in, you can put in your name. I can see 11 people there already. If you don't want to put your name, you can just put an initial. That's totally fine. And the topic that we are exploring, John, if you can just scroll down slightly so everyone can see the topic. The topic is, as you see it on the top, it's innovation, engagement, and technology. So when the question jam starts, what it's going to prompt you to do is to ask you, what questions do you have about this topic? So what question do you have? And then it's going to allow you to kind of toss that question to somebody who's in the room by assigning it to somebody, and they'll shoot back an answer to you. And that will just keep going for about 7 minutes. And then we're going to see some results of that to be able to see what are some of the themes that are emerging from our question and answer jam. Is everybody okay to take part in this? We're going to play with this for a couple of minutes. Great, 7 minutes. So I'm just going to log in as well, John. So don't start it just yet. Right. Okay. So I see we have 19 of us in there. 20 of us. If you can't get in, don't worry, and you would like to share a question, you can always pop it into the Zoom chat and I can bring it over as well. But John, I think you can go ahead and start the jam.
We've been practicing this, don't press that button, don't press this
Don't
button.
press the button until, because we know when you press the button what happens. Great. So what will happen is your screen should be changing and you should see the topic and you can start asking your question. So this is going to run for 7 minutes. And I'm not sure if either Julie or Stacey, if you do have the ability to maybe play us a little bit of music for these 7 minutes, that'd be great. If you don't, it's not a problem. So feel free, if you do, you can get that on for us. And you can just start popping in questions and sending it to people. And let's see what comes up. Let's play with this. Thank you, Stacey. So what you get back is this wonderful word cloud of all the words that were coming up in our questions and our answers. So you can see lots of different words that are coming up here. Obviously, innovation, engagement, and technology featured predominantly in both the questions and the answers that we were sharing with each other. But if we choose a word that maybe isn't a common one, like, look, oh, there's smell in there, John. Underneath group, there's smell.
Smell, there we are.
Yeah. So if we click that word, so then you can start to see, well, what was the question that had that word in it, or where was the answer in there? So you can start to dig in a little bit to some of the interesting words that maybe came up, or what was different, like play, and it will show you both the questions and the answers. We will download the results of this. You can keep clicking around and we will share it with the chat. Sorry, I'm seeing someone's asking, where is the main screen? Can everyone see John's screen? Okay.
Yeah? Marta, on Zoom,
Yes.
They're sharing it on screen share. It's not on your phone.
Yes, we're back in Zoom. Yes. Thank you for that. Okay. Yes, so you will see on your screen, you should have gotten an option to put in your email address if you wanted to download the results. We will also download the results and I will share them as well. So John will just click on download data and we will share that as well. And you can see, so it gives you a fun little way of tapping into what's happening, what is the group thinking, and what are some of the ideas that we have, what are some of the topics and questions about this topic that's come up, and then starting to tap into maybe some of the answers that people have as we toss things around. So that was the first of our 2 experiments that we're going to do today. Give me a thumbs up with that one, or give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Oh, good. It was all good for everyone. Wonderful. I'm glad you enjoyed that. That was great. And we love the music as well. So thank you for that. So we're gonna switch now to our second experiment. So I'm going to hand that over to John as we play a little bit with ChatGPT.
Yes, no, exactly. Thank you so much for that. I did pop into the chat window. I think there must be some connection between incidental music and quality of ideas generated and experience. That music accompanies, one of those sped up sequences that you see on a video of people working on something. So we're going to we're going to have a look at something called ChatGPT. This is something that it started to kind of make waves. I'll say sometime around December, and I know I'm on the adoption scale. Somebody is very much at the very front end, but I started to get a sense when you start seeing things. People posting on social media, people posting stories on LinkedIn, and certainly some of the press taking up some stories around how this is being applied and their experience with it. You know something is up. So around December, that's certainly when I started to see ChatGPT emerge. Now, I'll give a little bit of introduction to this. I am not an expert in artificial intelligence by any stretch of the imagination. I can say that ChatGPT is a natural language processor. It's GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer, and you can already see, for some of you, the eyes may glaze over. I'm like, I don't want to get into that anymore, any more deeply. But it's a very complex set of machine learning algorithms, based on millions of documents and millions of interactions with users to create this natural language chat-based question and answer sort of interface. I'm going to be sharing my screen for this, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is that people might not be very comfortable with having to go and sign up for something, and I don't want to impose that on everybody. But you're more than welcome to. And Tricia, I'll ask you, if you don't mind, if you can grab the URL, but you can send it to people. You're welcome to obviously play with it on your own, either in this session or afterwards. But I'm going to try and control it here. The second reason is that it's very popular and a lot of people have been using it. And you get those when you're preparing for a session like this, and you're getting messages on the tool you'll be sharing with people that says, a system overloaded, can't really process questions right now. You think, I don't know if I'm ready to go live with that. So I think it's ready to go. I've also got screenshotted versions of an earlier exercise that we can share should everything start to go south. So what I thought we'd do is I'll just exit here for now, and I'll go back over to the Chat GPT window. Stop share. And we'll start to explore this tool. So bear with me. Okay, so for those of you who have not seen it, this is chat.openai.com. You have a prompt, a place where you can ask your questions, and it will give a response. I'm going to take some questions that we had asked that came from from earlier exercises. I'm going to pop them in here, and let's see what happens. As you can see, unfortunately, there is a stop generating button down there. It does tend to limit itself at around 10, nice round number. But if we ask the question, what are some interesting questions to ask about the topic of innovation, engagement, and technology? The AI engine provides 10 thoughts, ideas that we might explore if we were taking into a workshop, if we were looking to explore something for some research, etc. I'm going to grab another one. This is one of the questions that we had been exploring. And here we have, what is the connection between innovation, engagement, and technology? I'll let people read that if you can, and I will obviously save this for later archival access. There are two more that I will pop in here. As you can see, and we will ask for everyone's reflections on these. Sometimes, one, it's incredibly impressive, some of the way in which it is, the responses are very easy to read. Sometimes one gets a sense that it's a little bit generic, but perhaps that's the fault of the questioner, I don't know. But I will say it's interesting how on Question Jam, for me, the responses definitely felt human. These ones, one might pause. And hopefully this does stop at something sensible. And the last one I've put in here is this question. And it'll be interesting to see how it conceives of this. Might even say it's quite personal and doesn't want to answer. As an artificial intelligence, I do not have a physical brain, so the concept of a bigger brain does not apply to me. However, I can say that having a larger model or more advanced algorithms can result in better performance at certain tasks, such as language, understanding, and generation. A larger model can also increase the amount of knowledge and information that I can access and make connections with, and can lead to more accurate and nuanced responses. So I guess there's a question here about what when a tool like this is there to help us access a bigger brain, a bigger digital brain. What is the implication for how we go about engaging in innovation together as humans, together as members of an organization, of a team, of society, when we have access to something like this? Tricia, I didn't see in the text box there. Let me just go back to sharing. I thought I saw the word terrifying. Is that correct?
Yes. This is impressive and also terrifying technology. Exactly.
No, exactly. No, I have to say, I confess. And I will stop in a moment because I really do want to hear what people here have to think about this. But I did feel some terror. Some concern about almost mindlessness. Just this is going to be a question generator, and I'll just take whatever is given back to me. For people who might have talents that are other than composition and writing, this is something that is an easy go-to. If anyone, one of the first stories that I heard about this tool was its application with students. Students typically the first ones to see a hack when it presents itself, and so as this was being used for term papers, some other very clever person came up with an AI tool that could detect whether that term paper has been generated by an AI engine. So the 10-foot wall begets the 12-foot ladder. There was something here, a blog, other uses for this sort of thing: blog generator, the term paper generator. To what extent does this democratize expertise or not? To what extent does it allow somebody to present themselves as an expert when perhaps they don't have the background? Lots going on here, but I appreciate everyone doing it. I do encourage you to play with this application yourself. I do apologize for kind of constraining it here, but it could have been worse. It could have been it could not have been working, which would have been a disaster for us.
I'd be interested to know how people have used ChatGPT, or what's been some of your experience so far. I know there've been a lot of posts that are being shared about how to kind of get the best out of it. So you can ask it to play the role of, or share in the words of, and that kind of stuff, which is interesting because you can almost get into a role play kind of experience with it. But for those of us who have been maybe testing or playing with this, what has some of the experiences been like? How have you found it to be useful? Yeah, go ahead, come off mute and tell us. Go ahead.
So I'm in higher education, and I'm an educational developer, so I support other teachers. And I also teach digital literacies to my students. So I actually let my students experiment with things. So this was before ChatGPT that we experimented with Quillbot for paraphrasing, different tools for drawing, and pseudo-write, which is for storytelling. So it writes for you, but it writes a story. And it's for them to look at and see, like, what directions does it take? And I want to see where the limitations, how good is it at what it does. And I also try to experiment to see if I can make it say more biased things, for example. So I don't have access to ChatGPT per se, but I have access to something called u.com, which is built on ChatGPT. And so my daughter, who's 11, and I, we experiment with this, and we see what's it going to say, what's it going to learn, and can it learn? Because it's supposed to learn, right? Because it keeps making things up that aren't true. And I keep trying to help it get the right answer. So we're sort of this idea of trying to teach it to get better is what I'm most interested in. And right now, as you were doing this, I was experimenting with trying to brainstorm workshop titles for an upcoming workshop. And so I asked it, and it gave me okay ideas, like meh, but they're okay. They're not bad. They're not creative, like someone was saying. But I think at some point it could get creative, and in the process of getting creative, it'll say silly things. Right now, it's not saying silly things, and that's why it's not creative. It should let itself get a little bit out of the box. It's kind of funny to say this because.
So some of what I hear in that is that while it's useful, you still need the human element on top of it to really sort of level up what you get out of it, to make it just that bit more creative or that bit more useful or something like that.
Yeah, it needs a push. Yeah, it needs a push with someone who has judgment.
Right. What else? What else are people's experiences with this?
I just put a message in the chat. It seems to me that there have been several comments in the chat box about attribution, and if it's a learning engine, is it possible to refine and to edit and to and how does that happen? Is it entirely mechanized, or is there a human aspect to validating what goes in there? But it seems to me that it would be very interesting if it could grow in sophistication and refinement, that you could develop something that actually sounds like it comes from the heart instead of just coming from the brain.
Right.
And excuse me. Sorry.
Take your time.
I choked on a mushroom.
Oh no.
Yeah, mushroom. But anyway, the idea being, I'm referring to my experience, which is Wikipedia. There's always an attribution. There's always an invitation to improvement. And there's always a way of determining, is it real or not? Because somebody looks through it and says, okay, this is not real, or this is 100% validated, or whatever. And that intrigues me, because if it could be validated, if it could be qualified, it would be a huge advantage.
No, indeed. And I think that if you look into the way in which the platform, the application, the model is developing, it depends on supervisors insofar as they're humans and non-humans who are giving some feedback to responses that are generated to try and shape it towards something that is either hopefully true and certainly hopefully useful. But absolutely. I'm conscious of our time, and I want to make sure that we progress on here. Tricia, I think we've got some reflection overall.
Yeah. So this was the challenge that we set out to kind of explore, or that we saw in front of us when we started this. The changing pace and scale of the organizational and societal challenges means that we're facing this ingenuity gap. And as a result of that ingenuity gap, we need to tap into a bigger brain, and this bigger brain being enabled by both humans and technology at scale. So we would love to know from you, we've taken a look at two very simple experiments today, one maybe on the more human side of Question Jam and tapping into what do people think about topics and starting to extract and get some answers from each other. And then, we took a look at playing with just ChatGPT to see kind of, well, what does technology sort of tell us on the same topic? What are some of the themes and ideas and that we get back when we feed these things into something like the AI. And we would love to know from you, so what is emerging for you based on the experience and this topic that we've been talking about today? What is emerging for you, and what are the implications that you see for innovation and closing this gap? And feel free to come off of mute and tell us. You can also type in chat as well. But we'd love to hear from a few people. What are your reflections today?
I'm curious how many other people are torn, right, by the possibility of quickly, like the original experiment we were looking at, they counted the number of ideas typed in a Google Doc. And if I were to partner with ChatGPT, I could kick their patootie like up and down so many times over. And that's really helpful. And yet at the same time, I feel like biomimicry, the opportunity to go outside and touch things is such an important part of coming to the solutions we need for the real complex global challenges we face. And that the more we stay locked into our little computer tidy bulleted list brains, the farther we get away from deep complexity. So I'm curious if anybody else is wrestling with that tension.
I think I'm very intrigued, but I'm so intrigued with this GPT. It's so interesting. And I think that I agree with Elise. I also had like this immediate reaction of kind of like, okay, well, because the first time I learned about it was professors worrying about kids cheating on their term papers, which we saw already in the chat box, right? But I really think some form of partnership of, organizing thoughts into a narrative isn't something we should push back on. And I really think that there's an element of organization that you can take it or leave it, but there has to be also that notion of choice. And again, back to my Wikipedia thing, you have a choice of saying, okay, this is cool for me or it's not. But I wonder at what point it might be very difficult to say, do I have a choice or not? This looks so articulate and so perfect, and they're using the right words, and hooray. It might just lead to a sort of lassitude in thinking. And that's one angle. That's maybe the management angle, people, the same problem we had when people were working off-site, right? But what about people working off-site who can just work faster if they're able to generate text? Because the generation of a text or a briefing or something that is repetitive doesn't require all the time it takes, really. It might just require saying, okay, here's the thing I need to write about, boom, it's done. And then you do the actual analysis and you put the information in there when it's useful. So I'm torn, and at the same time, I see it as something that we can't escape. It has to happen. It will happen because it's there. And then how do we use it not to be worrying about my viability, my usefulness, but how I can use it to worry more about how can I make this useful in the bigger context.
I appreciate that. Bruce, you made an interesting comment here about creativity requiring a sort of nuance. Can you say more? I mean, I think that's really interesting.
How much time do you have? Yeah, I think if you think about, well, let's just go to music. Someone mentioned music and data, the Star Trek guy. And if you think about music, I think the best music that I like has a nuance in it that doesn't necessarily follow music theory per se, but there's something that it engages with that is unusual. So you just take that further to anything that requires a creative mind. And I think finding nuance is what makes creativity, at least for me, exciting.
Yeah, it's like knowing the rules and then knowing to break the rules, right? To see what else you come up with is then the creativity that comes out of
what rules to break.
Which rules to break, yeah. Interesting.
I wanted to just build on that sense. I love that Star Trek episode reference. I remember the episode, but there's something about it when I engage with an interface tool like ChatGPT, I don't get feeling. I don't get love. I haven't tested it to say, right, I'm lonely, write me a love letter. make me feel happy, sort of thing. I can try that. But that sense of feeling and love, that sense of lived experience, obviously. I mean, I love somebody that queried, give me I don't know, 100 uses for a Frisbee. You're the one who's got the tangible experiences of Frisbees and can challenge yourself to start to really stretch the levels of creativity for that. Deviance, I think you had mentioned breaking the rules. Although somebody has said, I think they put some blocker on asking it how to rob a bank. But then again, somebody gets around it by saying, if I were writing a movie about how to rob a bank, what would you say? Again, the human coming in there to save the day with some kind of creativity and opening up new vistas to explore. I'm absolutely fascinated. I did have a question though. For anybody, how would you use, whether it's something like an AI tool like this, and this question did come up in the question jam. How would you use or design sessions differently, knowing that a tool like this or like question jam is available to you? What would be what are the design opportunities that open themselves up to you?
I think it's a great tool for writing improvisation scenarios. You just throw in a bunch of stuff and see what they come up with.
I like that.
I think it provides a great diving board or stimulus for further thought.
So more of that input and if I may say it this way, if this isn't what you're getting at, please correct or redirect. But when I hear you say that, it's almost like, if you and I were solving a problem, we might be standing on something a platform that's a little bit higher, because we've got some thoughts already. We've got some content, some framing already that allows us to have a metaphorical higher conversation that we might have had otherwise without some of that artificially generated material.
Absolutely. What came to my mind is it was like reading a guidebook book or a tour book, and it points to a certain area. Well, let's go to that area, but the experience itself is not done through reading the book.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
I wonder if there's value in, because it's kind of a controversial is probably not the right word, but is there value in using it to even just get people stirred on topics that they might not even be stirred on, because now they're thinking that there's a threat, or it's stirring something that perhaps I'm not articulating myself very well, but it is like a thing now that people can like bond in together with against another thing that might then produce interesting discussion and ideas that wouldn't have come about if the thing that's now creating something wasn't there. So I'm wondering if it stimulates kind of like a different reaction that brings out creativity to react against something. I don't even know if that makes sense. I'm sort of talking out loud and listening to myself at the same time.
Makes sense.
I like what you said, because it reminds me of what we talked about, the promise of social media, the fact that it would generate this thing. And of course, we've seen with the conspiracy communities that have grown through social media that there's a downside to that as well. But I mean, that's always the promise of technology, is that somehow extends our ability to connect and create and collaborate. I was more curious, or I was more responsive to this question jam. I hadn't seen it before. And with this size group, even though I was assigning questions to some people I knew, some I didn't, as I'm looking through the spreadsheet printout, it has a quality of anonymity to it that I don't think I'd get if I was in a room with you guys and we had some kind of activity where I was asking individuals questions. So because I believe the question here was for either of these tools, how can I imagine using it? And what I'm curious is, would this work with a team of 5? If we were stuck and needed to brainstorm, or stuck and needed to come up with something new, I think it might, but I'm not sure exactly how. It certainly is an interesting read for those of you who haven't read that download yet, for a group this size.
Yeah, Tom, I've tried it with a group of like 4. There definitely is a tipping point of when it gets better. It's with 4, it's a little small, for sure, because and the time. You can't, right now with Question Jam anyway, you can't change the length of time that it runs for. So every jam runs for 7 minutes. So what happens when the group is too small as well is that everybody's kind of holding because somebody's typing a question or something, and it's not kind of flowing back and forth as quickly as, because we had so many people in it this time. So I think there definitely is, you know, a safe number of around 6 or so that gives it enough momentum. But I'm sure there are developments to come with it as well.
I want to pick up on the last two, tied together the last two comments, because and it comes back to you know, this, are you on the, what side are you on? You know, the phrase that comes to mind is team human. You know, when I'm interacting with the Chat GPT and when I'm doing that with colleagues or with this group, I think we're all on the same side. You know, you almost want to say, don't take the side of the technology. We're the ones in charge here. Let's see what we can do. Let's kick its tires. Let's see if we can stress test it. Let's see what it says. We know which side we're on. Question Jam, but I felt like it was there in the background, allowing us all to be team human together. There was no us or them. It was just very invisible, allowing us to engage in a conversation. My reflection on this was, when I get asked the question in Question Jam, we've got 7 minutes. You've got some crazy music playing, and I feel like I'm on stage. That's a difficult. Somebody's asked me a very important question. I've got to respond to something very clever and insightful. And if I don't, my gosh, I don't get the sense that ChatGPT is stressing the same way. Therefore, underscoring its lack of humanity.
But I said because it's a precept that we're working with other human beings on Question Jam. You know that you're directing it to a human being, whereas with ChatGPT, not so much.
Well, you can always put in ChatGPT the question you have got in Question Jam.
Yes.
No, they did that.
Yes, we took 3 of those and we did that. Exactly. Yeah.
I find that the answers are quite Teflon. They're like really, you know, corporate speak in a way. Yeah.
Well, I wonder. So I wonder about that because they were coming up with like the fast answers in ChatGPT, right? But if you're not part of the process of developing those, you don't own it, and like it is kind of Teflon-y, right? So I think about like how many millions of business books are there out there that tell you how to manage change or tell you, you know what I mean? Like it's all out there, but our ability to do it is somewhat constrained by our ability to sort of like take it and make it ours so that we can then deliver it. And I think being actively part of a process is fundamentally different than having content delivered to you. So it is going to be a matter of sort of like using different circumstances, right? You're using it in different circumstances. I'll just, while I have the floor, I just want to throw 1 or 2 other things in, which is I just think about like ChatGPT is, I mean, I hear sort of being like, is it controversial? It's definitely raising a lot for people, right? It's like churning us up and challenging us in a lot of ways. And it just makes me think about how it's probably going to be one of those things that's like, it's neither universally good nor universally bad. And we're trying to like figure out what it is and where it lands. And it's going to be all of the things. It's going to challenge us to like revisit all of the learning and education we've had to do around questioning what you find on the internet, right? Google searches and like teaching ourselves that we don't trust everything we get on the internet. This is like taking us even more removed from the attribution, even more like an answer. And so it's like you ask, and as humans, we want an answer and we get it. And there's like some salve to that. If you get, it's like you put in a question and you get an answer and it's like, that feels good. There's a reason Google's so popular. And this is taking that one step further. Right. But I think that the human component, we talked about creativity. I do think it's about like, it always comes back to figuring out what the right question is. So like, that's still work that we have to do, is figure out what is the right question. And then the other final piece that I'm going to say is that the challenge that you guys have here on the slide, the way that I think about it is that the changing pace and scale and complexity of our world has almost gone beyond our ability as humans to wrap our minds around it. And so the bigger brain is probably, it's either we simplify things or we create mechanisms to understand that complexity. And I think I've always been in this place of like, how would we simplify without allowing for, well, maybe there's another option of really expanding into helping technology support without the alienation and the fear of it like taking over, right? Which has been with us since technology really hit the scene, and 2001: A Space Odyssey and all the rest. So I'll stop rambling, but I just have been, this is such an interesting topic, and I've had a few thoughts, and I can't access the chat, so I see things pop.
Go ahead, Bruce. I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think at the risk of waxing professorial, I I think it's important to make a distinction between technology that provides process help, that is to enable us to think better, versus technology that provides content. And we know when content is provided and it's not taken care of, not gone through, that it could go awry, and it has a life of its own. So we have to be careful of the more content side and just use that as a stimulus to think rather than the other way around.
Oh, wonderful. No, thank you all so much. And just going back through some of the comments that were coming up again in the chat window, somebody raised an excellent question about the prospect of regulation of this sort of thing. Do we foresee a world where this sort of usage of this tool will need to be regulated from some sort of governmental authority? Or otherwise? Perhaps a question for the chat GPT. Let's see if it imposes its own limitations.
No response.
Well, I know we're a little bit early, and I do want to make sure that we afford the time to be used well for folks. Is there anything else on this topic that people would like to either revisit or explore in a little bit more depth as we get close to rounding it out? I'll just leave a moment of space for that.
I did have one thought that I can't figure out if it's obvious and way too general or insightful. So I'll share it and you can decide. It seems to me, answering your question at the bottom there, what are the implications that you see for innovation and closing the ingenuity gap, that it's as Bruce mentioned, we need to think better. And how do we do that? We use some of the tools and techniques and approaches that we've been talking about at this conference. We empower people in our corporate environments to play, to express edge opinions, to express the diverse opinions, to express opinions that upper management doesn't approve of. We do that in our communities. We do that in our families. You can see at this point, it appears to be getting general enough to have no value at all. But I do think there's a germ of something in there where we keep playing and we keep trusting our humanity and our ability to create together.
I like that.
I like that. I think what comes to mind, I just missed 5 minutes there, so apologies if this has already been said. But what comes to mind with all these tools that come to us, and it's similar to like NFTs and all of this world, what strikes me is more, where does it fit into education of how we use it well? And then that kind of lends itself to suggesting the best way to use these things. So is it going to be part of education? Are we going to help the next generation to use all these tools to benefit the world and it becomes part of curriculum? Or is it a corporate responsibility to do that? Or is it, again, just a thing like Bitcoin, like NFT, and it just is a thing that's out there and everyone's just making it up, and he or she who shouts loudest, or they who shout loudest, get heard, and they are suddenly the gurus. But actually, if it was presented in a different way, it's kind of answering your question there, John, about the authority and does it need regulated? Well, does it need educated? I guess is what springs to mind, because like NFT, okay, it's a really powerful thing. I've watched so many webinars now and they're all telling me different things, and now I'm like, oh my God, switch it off. But you know, it's probably really powerful and I'm missing out on it. So yeah, what's the next generation? What's the young kids going to be doing with all these tools? And are we directing the energy into using it for good? I'm going to stop rambling.
Your last rambling was quite fruitful. So this should also bear fruit.
So I think, John, we're kind of coming up to time, and I know we do want to ask for a little bit of feedback. We want to thank everyone for all these comments and really digging into this with us, into this experiment with us. John, if you go to the next slide, I think it would be great if you could just reflect on this for a couple of seconds. What would you share? Like, before the session today, I thought X, and now I think Y. We've been experimenting with, you know, some simple little sort of tools and experiments. We've been digging into this conversation around what does it mean? What does the technology mean? How does it impact us? How does it impact innovation? But we'd love for you to share some of your thoughts on this. So, and you can type it into the chat, please. Before today, I thought X, and now I think Y. So fill out the Mad Lib and let us know what you think. Nice. I thought threat, and now I think possibility. It's great. Thanks for sharing that. There's some great resources that have been shared in the chat, which I will also save. Before today, I thought I knew lots of interesting technology tools. Now I think I have little idea. Before today, I thought I don't want to play with technology, but now I'm interested in some of the technology tools. You're very welcome, Stephen. Thank you for joining us. What other thoughts? For today, I thought AI was out of scope for the experiment. Now I think it might still be. You can ask it if it thinks it's out of scope.
Have to ask our advisors.
Yeah. Before today, I thought that we were the masters of AI and it was helping us to make the world a better place. Now I think that the more sophisticated AI gets, the more human humans are becoming. Spirituality, vulnerability, empathy, humor, chaos is what the business world expects from its leaders. Great, that's lovely.
Well, thank you all for this. This last one, I recognize the need to inquire carefully about human and technology interactions. Fantastic. I'm reliably assured that these texts will not be lost. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We will engage in a closing here. Thank you to our hosts first and foremost, and thank you to you for participating. We were humbled to engage in this conversation with you and to learn from you. So thank you so much. We'd love to hear from you. You can certainly reach out to us at hello@everylittlemodel.com. Certainly on this topic or on any topic that interests you. You've got QR codes here that will take you to our podcast on Apple and Spotify. It's the Every Little Model podcast. You can find us on LinkedIn and Instagram. And we also have a companion app that you can access again on the right that features the models that we talk about on our podcast. So you can have a play with that. It's free. It's our gift to you. Once again, thank you so much for attending. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yes, thank you everyone. It was great. Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Dave.